So we're going to be talking about discovering hope and fostering your imagination and goals. Our general outline, I already introduced myself a little bit. Another thing to know about me, I guess, is that I am located in West Fargo, and I've lived in North Dakota my entire life, other than when I almost moved to Hawaii. And so any of you know who, this eastern side of the state, the western side of the state, I've got family all over. So hopefully maybe we can all connect and discuss who we are and where we're from on a different meeting. That'd be fun. So, okay, so hope is the belief that your future will be better than today and that you have the power to make it be so. And that is a quote from, his name is Chan Hillman, and he is from the Hope Institute and Hope Research Center. He is a doctor, and he's just, the person who really inspired this presentation. So first we're going to talk about, the basics of hope. How do I go backwards? This is just great. Okay, here we go. There we go. We are going to talk about the basics of hope, and we're going to talk a little bit about inspiring hope in yourself and fostering it in yourself and fostering hope in others. So forget what you think you know about what hope is and what hope means. Imagination is actually the instrument of hope. And so there's really three parts to hope and to fostering hope in yourself and what hope actually is. So first, we have to be able to acknowledge the current situation. We have to know this is who I am, this is what it is around me, this is my current situation. We also have to be able to recognize that different situations exist. That part is extremely important. So if a person has been, lived, let's say a person has lived in an abusive home their entire life, and they have been only in that space. They haven't been able to go to school. They haven't been able to see that there is anything past their situation. They don't even know that something else exists. So you have to be able to know that there's something else out there. And then the most important is that you have to be able to imagine what your different is. Everybody says, I wish I had something different, or this needs to be different, this needs to be better. Being able to imagine what that actually looks like is important. The reason why I chose this photo for this slide is because, there we go, is because I do not know how to work with clay, not one bit. When I see a lump of clay, I can acknowledge my situation. My situation is that there is a lump of clay here. I can recognize that, yeah, this lump of clay could be something different. Lots of really cool things are made out of clay. But imagining what that lump of clay could be and how to get it to the next step, I have no clue. Now, the person in this picture acknowledges, hey, I have a lump of clay. I know this lump of clay could be a really cool vase, and I can imagine what that vase looks like in my mind, so I'm going to make it. More of the basics of hope. So, we have the acknowledge and the seeing that something else could be there, and also the imagination. Now we have three elements of how to get past our hope or get through our hope. And so this is where the idea of hope versus wishes come in. So these three elements are extremely important. We need the goals that have some type of value and a way to measure them. We need pathways or directions to getting to a place, and troubleshooting when we, hit blocks in the road. And then we need what they call, at the Hope Research Center, they call it agency. And this is like the energy you have to get through it, the determination, to continue on. So if you don't have those three elements, you really don't have hope, you have a wish. And I think about right now, COVID. things that are going on with COVID. I wish this was done. My husband or my son keeps saying, Mom, I hope this is over soon. I hope this is over soon. And I say, honey, yeah, we all wish it's going to be over soon. We all hope it's going to be over soon. Well, right now, we can acknowledge that, yep, we are in this whole situation with each other. We're in a yucky COVID situation. We're in a pandemic. We don't like it. And we know that there's something else out there. My son, he's 11. He remembers life and he remembers school before wearing masks and 6 feet apart and all of that. There we go. I had to admit somebody else in. Okay. And he can imagine what it would look like, but we don't have goals for making it go away because we're really not in charge of that. We do what we can do by, we use our pathways of using our mask and staying, 6 feet apart and trying to help each other, encourage each other through this time and everything, but we don't really have any control over that. So really, we're just wishing. Now, this little girl in this picture, I love this picture because in my mind, she is hoping to make it to outer space someday. She knows that outer space is out there, and she knows that if she studies really hard and she works really, really hard in science and math and gets herself out there, that one day she's going to make it to outer space and be off of this earth, right? That's how I see it. She could also be wishing, but I really think she's got the goals, the pathways, and the agency. So there's more to the basics of hope. We've got all of that great stuff, but now we have what they call the hope robbers, and there's 3 of them. The first one is trauma. And I don't know all of you on this call, but I do know that I do think that most of us have at least heard about trauma. It's something that a lot of research is being done on right now. And so regardless of what profession we're in, I think we're all kind of learning a lot about trauma lately. Trauma interrupts brain development, excuse me. Trauma interrupts brain development, and trauma interrupts brain processes. So whatever our brain is working on at that time of the trauma, that's what's going to be interrupted. So there's 2 different kinds of trauma as well. Well, there's many kinds of trauma, but there's 2 different statuses, I guess you could say. There's addressed trauma and unmitigated trauma. And so everybody in their life is going to have some kind of traumatic experience or, go through something at some time that is going to interrupt their brain development or their brain processes. If we address it and work through it, we have a much better chance of having hope. If we don't, and we have that unmitigated trauma, that damage and that interruption is going to get in our way. And so there are 2 different types of goals that come along with hope. There's avoidance goals and there's achievement goals. So the avoidance goals are much more common with people that have higher amounts of unmitigated trauma. An avoidance goal is something like, I think about my daughter's boyfriend, and he has had more trauma in his life than anybody I can imagine. And a lot of his goals are, I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to be like my grandma. That's his goal, is to not be like that. So an avoidance goal is removing something from your life, right? An achievement goal is adding something to your life. So what him and I have been working on, because he's a young guy, and he needs a little bit of this guidance, but is adding an achievement goal to help him reach that avoidance goal. So instead of, he's seeing the hope that he can break the cycle, but what does he need to do that? Well, he needs to have some type of education and get a job and keep a job and have good relationships. And so now he has some education. He's a welder. He's got his job. He's learning to have good relationships. Another one of our hope robbers is failure, because failure eventually just leads to apathy. enough failure just leads to apathy. And then fear is the final hope robber. And that is basically just imagination at its worst. Imagining trauma and failure is, and one more person. Imagining trauma and failure can lead to despair and hopelessness. We don't even need to actually have it, just imagining it. All right, so 12:17, we're doing okay here. Now that we have the basics of hope and what hope means and what can disturb our hope and disrupt our hope, we are going to move on to fostering hope in ourselves. The great thing is that hope is a learned behavior. Hope is something that we can learn because we can learn how to use our imagination. I just want to let that sink in a minute. We learn how to use our imagination. The more we use our imagination, the more hope we can have. So it's really important to identify, what is this that I'm experiencing right now? Is it hope or is it a wish? Is it an undeveloped wish, or is it an avoidance goal? You know, an undeveloped wish would be like my son and I hope that COVID's over soon, right? An avoidance goal is like my daughter's boyfriend who says, I don't want to be like my dad. I'm not going to be like my dad. An achievement goal is like my daughter's boyfriend who says, I'm going to get an education and I'm going to hold a job and I'm going to be responsible in my life. Those are achievement goals. So you got to identify, what is it? And are you okay with what you have at the time? Are you okay that it's just a wish? Yes, I'm okay that I am only wishing that COVID goes away because I don't have the ability to make it go away, right? But my daughter's boyfriend was not okay with just wishing his life was better when he was a kid. He knew he needed to do something about it. So whatever it is, give it a good definition, because if anybody knows the band Rush, which I love very much, Neil Peart said, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. All right. So now, yes, do we have barriers in our life? Absolutely. We have internal barriers, and those can be hope robbers. Those are the trauma, the failure, and fear. We can address them and work through them. So again, daughter's boyfriend went through a lot of trauma. He has failed on many things. He had a really tough time in school, and he's afraid. He is definitely afraid. These are all things he's had to work through inside himself. Okay, what about external barriers? These can be hurdles. These are real, actual things, right? So he was in foster care up until he was actually 19. One of the hurdles was, what happens when I get out of foster care? Well, he found the pathway was that he was able to stay in foster care until he had his education. So he was, has some support in overcoming those hurdles. Soren Kierkegaard said that hope is a passion for what is possible. And Soren Kierkegaard was where's my notes? A Swedish philosopher. He was in the mid 1800s, and he back then was talking about hope and being a passion for what is possible. Oops. All right, so now we know how to get some hope. We have to sit and imagine what it could be like in our life. What is our different? What is it that we want to have changed? Imagine what that looks like. We find our goals, we find our pathways, we find our agencies. And when barriers arise, what we have to do is revising our pathway, reassess our hope. I had a really big hope when I was a kid, and that was that I wanted to be a professional opera singer. That's what I wanted to do. I was in voice lessons. I was in voice lessons in college, classically trained. It was something that could have actually happened. Some barriers came up. They were actually pretty good barriers when it comes to it. Life happens, that kind of thing. And that dream and that hope did change for me. Instead, I really chose to become a mom and to start studying behavioral health and those things. I reassessed my hope. So when the barriers came that I wasn't able to go to the school I wanted to go to, that I would have been able to, continue becoming an opera singer, it just wasn't going to happen. I reassessed my hope and decided, you know what, this is actually just kind of a wish now. This is something I need to redo in my mind. Instead, I could have chosen a different pathway and fought really hard and kept going at it. But I reassessed, where am I with this hope? How much agency, how much energy do I have to put into it? Now, a friend of mine actually went on, actually a few friends of mine did go on and were able to become opera singers and musicians and travel the world and those type of things. They had different barriers and they made different choices than I did. So when a barrier comes forward to you, that's when you reassess. Where am I with my agency? How much do I really want this? So here is a wonderful quote from Brene Brown, and I adore her. And if you don't know who she is, please look her up. But she says, "We will struggle and fall. We will know what it means to be both brave and brokenhearted." And with hope, that links, because you will struggle when you are trying to go through your pathway. You will struggle when you do have that imagination and you see what it might be that you could do differently. And it hurts because you think, I can't have it, or, there's too many barriers and things like that. But you will be brave and brokenhearted when you give it your best shot and when you try to find those pathways. I'm brokenhearted that I wasn't an opera singer. I really am. But I was brave in that I tried. And I'm very, very happy that I have the life I have now. Okay, so we do have a few minutes. I would like to see if any questions have been coming through. And if not, I would like to move to fostering hope in others. So Terry?
Just keep rolling.
Keep rolling. All right. Well, you know what? I did this presentation in about an hour and a half for another group, and it fits better in the hour and a half, but we do have time to talk about fostering hope in others. So again, Chan Hillman, he says, hope is the belief that your future will be better than today and you have the power to make it be so. When he said those words to me, to the group that I was in, yeah, I felt that. He was fostering hope in me. Okay, so when you're going to foster hope in others, and I'm thinking about, teachers who are talking with their students or social workers who are talking to the families that they work with, remember, they don't know what they don't know. All they know is they can acknowledge what their world is like, but they can't necessarily recognize that there is something else out there. So we need to present that to them. When you look at these two pictures here, we have a road on the top with water on one side and a cliff on the other. You can only go in that one direction. If you're on that road, you only know that direction. There's only that road. Now the road on the bottom, let's say after a few miles, this one road turns into the road on the bottom. Now it's a dirt road. It doesn't look very nice. It's, kind of yucky, but all of a sudden there's another choice. There's another path to take. Now you can recognize that, wow, there is more to this road, right? Same as life. You can present to children or to people who really don't have hope, you can present to them new ideas and help them get that imagination sparked. Maxime Lagacé is a Canadian author, and actually there are two Canadian authors, or two Canadians named Maxime Lagacé. One is a hockey player and one is the author, and the author says, it's because of hope that you will suffer, and it is through hope that you will change things. So when you're standing at that road saying, wow, there's a different way I could go here. Do I dare? Is it going to be scary? Is something bad going to happen? You got a little suffering there, but you will be able to make a choice and make changes. All right, I'm going to move past this a little bit. So when you have somebody that comes to you that says, I wish things were better in my life. I wish we were done with this pandemic. I wish that I was in a better relationship with my spouse. This is where you can come in and help them. Assess their hope, just like you would do with yourself. Help them assess their own hope. Is it a wish? Is it hope? What do they want it to be? Identify where the person is in this process and respect where they are, because they're not going to move forward with anything if they're forced or pushed into one of these little categories. And then watch for the hope robbers. Especially with kids, it's really important to give them some foundation for success. When you think about riding your bike or playing a game with a kid, you know, sometimes you might let them win a little bit, because then they have this great future memory of success, and it gives them more stamina and more self-esteem, and then they're ready to learn more. All right, so what can I really do? We can provide options and ideas and space for imagination, unconditional positive regard. That is, you know, even if they're choosing something that you don't necessarily agree with or think is, you know, up with your standards or morals or whatever, give them that positive regard. And then consistency. That is very important as well. So I think we made it through all of our sections here for hope. This is the end of our first mental health minute. I hope that there's something in there for everybody. And when I say that, I really tried to make sure there was something in there for everybody. If you have any questions, you can surely you know, send me an email or get a hold of anybody at Project Renew. I have one last slide here, and on this slide, I'll give you all a minute to write this down. There's my contact information. And then there's also, I cited Chan Hillman a lot, the executive director of the Hope Research Center. And so there's where you can find out a lot more information. This was just like a lot condensed into a short period of time. So for everybody that came to Project Renew's first Mental Health Minute, I thank you. And thank you for putting up with my little bit of technical issues at the beginning. So it is 12:30 and we made it. So everybody, I hope you have a really great weekend or rest of your week, really great day, and you're able to use this into fostering hope in yourself and others, and just keep it on your mind. So I will talk to you all later.